Welcome back to another deep dive on the Explainer. So, today we're unpacking a massive, and I mean massive, misconception that's been sitting right at the very heart of the Japanese educational system. You see, for decades now, there's been this widely accepted narrative about exactly why English language instruction in Japan struggles so much. But as we're going to see, the established suspect? It might just be a really convenient scapegoat. Let's get right into it.
Listen to this quote from researcher Peter Sturman way back in 1989. He said, "The final aims of schools is to prepare students for entrance examinations." And honestly, that perfectly captures what critics have believed for a very long time. Observers have almost universally pointed the finger at Japan's notoriously grueling university entrance exams, blaming them for the country's poor English language teaching methods. The assumption is incredibly simple, right? The test itself is the problem.
Section 1. The exam scapegoat myth. Blaming the test. Okay, so to really understand this blame game, we've got to define a core academic concept first. It's called the washback effect. Basically, this refers to the supposed cause and effect relationship where university entrance exams totally dictate what happens in middle and high school classrooms. Critics claim that because these exams are so incredibly high stakes, they literally force teachers to toss good pedagogy out the window and instead just, teach to the test.
And because everyone believes this, a massive industry has sprung up. We're talking about the Juku and Yobiko. These are the after-school cram academies, which have helped fuel what researchers call a literal language testing hysteria. Since everyone just assumes the exams are dictating the curriculum, critics have basically concluded that the only way to fix the Japanese educational system is to either drastically change these entrance exams or just eliminate them entirely.
Section 2. Examining the actual exams. The plot twist. Well, here is where the story gets really interesting. When researchers finally sat down and analyzed the actual content of various university entrance exams, they found something completely shocking. The exams aren't just simple translation exercises or rote grammar memorization at all. Actually, they feature adult-level reading passages, really well-written, authentic texts, and contextualized task-based questions. The big plot twist here is that these exams actually require highly advanced, native-level comprehension to pass.
Section 3. The classroom disconnect, a glaring gap.
So the discrepancy we're looking at here is just massive. On the one hand, you have the entrance exams demanding native speaker level complexity, right? They're asking integrative questions that require serious structural and lexical recognition. But then, on the other hand, the high school textbooks used in the actual classrooms are often full of grammatical and stylistic mistakes. They focus super narrowly on discrete items, and they provide absolutely zero exposure to the kind of adult-level, authentic texts that the students are eventually going to face on the exams.
3. That is the staggering grade-level difference in reading difficulty between the actual entrance exams and the high school textbooks that are supposedly preparing the students to take them. It's like training for a marathon by taking a slow walk around the block. Which brings us to a really crucial question. Where exactly is the washback effect? Think about it. If the high school textbooks and the classroom instruction bear almost zero relevance to these highly complex university tests, then the exams absolutely cannot be the things dictating the pedagogy. The test cart is simply not pulling the educational horse here. Instead, what we actually find are some pretty shocking statistics, like 92%. In a survey of university freshmen, a massive 92% reported that during their entire high school career, they never had a single opportunity to independently discuss or analyze the thematic contents of the English passages they were reading. Not once. And building on that, 72% of those exact same freshmen characterized their high school reading classes as nothing more than translation exercises. Basically, the bulk of classroom time is just spent on teacher-dominated, line-by-line translation into Japanese. And that leaves students completely unequipped for the authentic, top-down reading strategies that the exams actually demand. Section 4. Hidden motives and pedagogy. The real suspects. Okay, so if the exams aren't the culprit, what are the actual hidden motives driving this methodology? Well, researchers have uncovered a few pretty surprising things. First, teachers are often using English texts to actually teach the intricacies of Japanese grammar. Second, there's this underlying cultural belief that this grueling translation method builds mental discipline. Third, it affords the teacher absolute control over the classroom. Fourth, some researchers have even pointed to a xenophobic refusal of direct engagement with foreign cultures, basically recoding everything safely into Japanese first. And finally, there's just a severe lack of teacher training when it comes to proper reading pedagogy.
To put this into perspective, a 1998 study by Gorsuch observed that, quote, the teachers focused on helping students to think about and create meaningful Japanese rather than meaningful English, unquote. When interviewed, the teachers actually admitted that helping students learn proper Japanese was an important part of their goal. So when you look at it that way, it's essentially a Japanese grammar class operating in a trench coat.
Section 5. The real educational cost. A system failing. But of course, all of this has a very real-world impact. Despite massive financial investment and countless hours of instruction, Japan's students are significantly falling behind their Asian peers in reading comprehension. The average TOEFL reading scores show Japan sitting at 499, which is lagging notably behind Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, and China. The translation-heavy methodology simply isn't working for real-world English comprehension.
And the really cruel irony of all this? Over the last 20 years, Japanese average TOEFL reading scores have actually decreased steadily. Yeah, decreased. So while the university entrance exams have steadily become more sophisticated and more comprehension-focused over the years, the students' actual reading abilities have somehow gone down.
Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, okay, maybe only a tiny elite fraction of students pass these impossible exams. Actually, no. 69%. Despite having such low average skill levels compared to what the tests actually demand, roughly 69% of Japanese students still successfully enter post-secondary schools. And what that tells us is that lax admission standards and backdoor routes, like athletic scholarships or special recommendations, are basically keeping this broken system afloat. It allows universities to totally ignore the massive gap between their tests and their students' actual abilities.
But there's a major demographic shift on the horizon. Japan's birth rate is steadily declining, which is creating a rapidly shrinking student pool. As time goes on, these universities are going to be forced to compete energetically for a much, much smaller number of applicants just to maintain their enrollment numbers and, well, survive financially.
Which really leaves us with a critical question to ponder. As these demographics shift, will schools finally reform their outdated pedagogy to actually teach English? Or will economic reality win out, causing universities to lower their admission standards even further just to keep the lights on and fill those empty seats? I mean, this matters so much because it shows how easily a massive systemic failure can be masked by a convenient scapegoat. It's a critical crossroads for the Japanese education system, for sure, and a powerful reminder to make sure we always identify the real root of a problem before we go trying to fix it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always look past the established narratives.